what are the benefits of training plants?
I feel the benefits are one, it's so fun. Oh my goodness, that's like the main benefit right there. It's just so fun to play with the plants. But it adds structure to each of the branches. So later on, they can hold up their own weight. And the more girthier the branch, the easier it will be later on in flower to hold up its own weight. I don't like putting trellis nets and that sort of stuff over my colas. It's just too fussy and it makes me mad. I just get frustrated. So I like to train them early and get them nice and strong so they can hold up their weight later on.
Awesome. Yeah, there are definitely some really good benefits to training plants. One of the things that I particularly like is that it helps with the distribution of light in a sense, right? Because if you are in a grow tent, for example, and you just letting the plants grow naturally, Christmas tree style, you typically have that one cola just kind of comes up and dominates. Well, those lower branches aren't going to receive as much light, right? And so I know it's genetic dependent and stuff like that, but you could see kind of lower quality on the lower buds. But, a lot of genetics these days, it ends up being just fine. But if you're training and you're training the plants, you're manipulating the plants so they are even canopy across the entire grow space, well, then you've got that light shining down. And there have actually been some studies where you can get a higher yield from training versus not training. So I think that's another reason why a lot of people do it. But there are always downsides to things as well, right? What are the downsides to plant training?
Oh, breaking a branch. There's nothing worse than just being a little too rough with that and breaking a branch. And, I'm such a good Canadian. I was, sorry, my little girls, I always feel so bad. And I run out and get my painter's tape and I try to save them as much as I can. And, but if you can't save it, you've always got yourself a nice clone. If you're not running an auto flower, if you're running a proper girl, that you could just clone her, and so there's really no downsides other than you might get an extra clone out of it.
I would say one downside. I've got one in mind, which is that it's a little bit more work, right? You getting in there, spending the time to do whatever type of training you decide to do. We're going to go over the different training types here in this episode, but anything from just tying the branches down to high stress train techniques where you're topping the plant, actually removing some things. It takes a little bit of time, right? Now, that's not to say that the reward isn't going to be better, because it certainly can be. So yeah, that's the only thing I can really think of as far as like a downside to plant training.
Yeah, see, I don't consider that being a downside, because that's time I get to spend with my girls. That's part of the fun part, right? Like that's just, I get to tune out the world, and I'm just in tune with my girls in the tent and taking care of business in there. So yeah, that's probably why that didn't come to me. I don't think of that as a downside. So that's one of the perks.
Great point. Yeah, I know there are a lot of people who are they monitor the amount of time they're in there, and they try to reduce the time that they're in there. A lot of people have real automated systems now to where they don't only have to check in their plants once a day, if that, and they're in there for a very short period of time. So yeah, there are some people who really just try to limit the time in their garden so they can do other things. Or there are people that really love the garden and they want to spend more time in there. So it really depends on how you are as a person.
Exactly. And training's not necessary. So if you don't have the time to get in there, that's fine. If you do, it's wonderful and so rewarding.
Great point. Yeah, it is completely optional to do all this stuff. You can let the plant grow naturally, Christmas tree style, whatever, and get to a harvest. I know that's back when I first started growing, I didn't want to do any training. I was afraid to top the plant because I just like, oh no, I want this to be successful. I don't want to destroy the plant, right? So like I've had several grows where I just let the plants grow naturally. But, as you get more comfortable growing and more confident, you tend to manipulate the plant a little bit more and more and see what they can take. And you can be really rough with them, for sure.
I find even just one good training session, if you don't have a lot of time, if you're just about to flip, maybe the week before a flip, just give it one good training session. And that's wonderful as well. You don't have to be in there every day, moving this leaf and moving that leaf. You can go in and just give her one good training session, and you'll still see benefits.
This clip is brought to you by AC Infinity. Use discount code MrGrow at 15 to save on any of their products.
you.